What if you witness somebody humiliating a colleague or being really, really rude? Is it your responsibility to deal with it, or could that just make life harder for everybody involved? And what happens to our performance when we feel like we've been treated badly? Now, one of the great things about hosting this podcast is I get to interview loads of people and hear loads and loads of new ideas. It's not often that something genuinely changes my practice almost immediately. Now, this podcast episode was one of those that stopped me in my tracks and meant that I completely changed what I was doing. The original episode was really long, so for our summer special, we've chopped it down and given you that bit that I found so fascinating. So we're replaying an extract of one of our standout episodes from 2023 with Dr. Chris Turner. Now, he was the co-founder of the Civility Saves Lives movement, and I've had so much feedback from people about how helpful this episode was. And I hope that this episode's going to be easier to share with your colleagues because it's a lot shorter. And also, I'm delighted to say that Chris will be joining us at our Frog Fest virtual summit on the 28th of November in the morning. So if you haven't already booked your ticket, follow the link in the show notes or head to shapestoolkit.com/frogfest to find out just how to have those awkward conversations. And if you want to hear my conversation with Chris in full, there's a link in the show notes too. Otherwise, just enjoy these edited highlights, focusing on how being civil is more than just about being nice and how it really can save lives.
My name's Chris Turner. I'm a consultant in emergency medicine at University Hospitals of Coventry and Warwickshire. And a few years ago, I co-founded Civility Saves Lives, which is a grassroots organisation dedicated to raising awareness of the impact of behaviour on performance. We really don't like it when the people around us are treating each other in a negative way. And I think that's important in healthcare as well, because certainly when I was at the very early stages of my career and as a medical student, humiliation in front of patients was utterly normalised. And we allowed some pretty hideous behaviours at senior levels.
But how do we give this feedback to these people who, like you said, there are a few psychopaths around, but most people don't go to work to give people a hard time?
The feedback needs to matter to the person that you're talking to. I could give you some feedback just now, Rachel, about your behaviour. And if you don't give a damn about how you're seen, you're not going to give a damn about the feedback. It's not important to you. So I see part of the Civility Saves Lives stuff as being an arc. The first bit is making the argument that behaviour matters. I think most people end up deciding that it's important on their terms. And then when it comes to feeding back to people. So what we know is just getting people on board with the idea that behaviour matters. And, none of us see ourselves perfectly all the time. You and I will have interactions this week with people, and those other people will walk away feeling quite damaged by that, and we won't have a clue. And the more it happens, the more it's normalised, the more that's just the way that Rachel or Chris interact with people, and it becomes just us. And then you get this really dangerous statement in the workplace where people go, that's just Chris, but no one's told me, and I don't know how I'm coming across. So then we need to get into how you have these conversations. And it's interesting that the way that you set that conversation up was you telling somebody who had been uncivil to you about how you felt. And that is a phenomenally high-level feedback skill, like really, really difficult. And the reason that it's really difficult is, say it's me and you, and I speak to you, and I leave you feeling like crap, especially if I'm the boss. If you have to come and give me feedback, we know that the person in your position believes that I deliberately did it. That means if you come and give me feedback, what you're saying is, Chris, so, you know how you tried to hurt me the other day? Well, it worked. Please don't do it again. That's empowering your aggressor. You have to be an idiot to want to do that, because, or just a masochist. So we don't have those conversations. Because actually, much as we want to have that degree of personal mastery, we want to be able to go and say, yeah, this is how it is to somebody. Actually, we're the wrong person to do it. Because when we do go into those conversations, we carry a lot of emotional baggage with us. And that emotional baggage arouses us closes our bandwidth, stops us being the best version of ourselves, and it means that we often get into confrontational interactions, or we are so meek and mitigating that the other person hasn't a clue what we're trying to say to them. The right person to have the conversation is not you. It is somebody else, preferably a peer of mine, who then comes and has the conversation with me. It's a conversation that has 3 overarching meta principles. The first one is this, and it's really counterintuitive. The person having the conversation is going to care about the person they are speaking to, because people who are damaging others in interactions are often quite damaged and hurting themselves. Also, if they don't know, this is going to be a difficult thing to hear. So we are going to care about them in that conversation. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to have the conversation with 0 judgment about intent. We literally don't know the intent of the person who is speaking. And the third bit is we are going to deliver the professional privilege of a package of information of knowing how we are perceived, or that person is perceived, which is a really long way of saying, telling someone how somebody else felt. And the way that we teach people to do this, it is 3-step technique. It has those 3 overarching things in the first place, but the 3-step technique goes like this. Check in, raise the flag, land the information. And the check-in is like this. So the situation is now that Rachel has been involved in something, and someone's pretty devastated at the other end of it. Rachel's blithely going on through life as Rachel does, boiling frogs and doing all the rest of it. And I'm going to go and speak to you. And I'd come and speak to you, and it would be as soon as is practical, but also at the right time for you. And the conversation, the first bit is check-in. And I say, Rachel, how are you? No, really, how are you? And I pause, and I wait. And you might well say you're fine, or you might then speak for 8 minutes without stopping, because you are not all right. The second bit is raising the flag, and it would go like this. It would go, so Rachel, what happened with Sam yesterday in the department? And you might say, oh, you know what, I made this joke and I realised afterwards it could have sounded racist, but I don't think she heard. And I can say, hey, she heard. So I've checked in, I've raised the flag, and now I'm going to land the information. Really, really carefully constructed and very simple. And it goes like this. So Rachel, after you spoke with Sam yesterday, Sam was really upset, and I know you'd want to know. Now, what will happen then is the other person will speak. They want to say what happened from their perspective. They want the chance to talk. That's all cool. The important thing has been done. This person now has that piece of information that they can choose what they want to do with it. Because if you don't know, how can you choose to behave differently the next time?
So you don't tell them anything else? Or if they then start asking, well, why? What did I do? Can you then give more information?
Well, it depends what you know. So after you spoke with Sam yesterday, Sam was really upset, and I know you'd want to know. They might well want to understand that, and I get that. The important thing is that Sam was upset, because we know that upset people don't perform so well. And what might happen there, what sometimes happens, is that people will ask lots of questions to try and understand it a bit better, and they will sometimes go, that's a lot of rubbish. So fine. But Sam was still upset. And you furnish people with the knowledge of somebody else's emotion, and it's not really my place to explain why they were upset. Arguably, if this person wants to know, then that the right place, the best place to have a conversation with Sam where they're saying sorry for it. Now, I know that occasionally people don't say sorry, but the vast majority of people do, because we really don't like hurting our fellow person.
Okay, so you've given them feedback and go, Sam was upset, I knew you want to know. But what if the person that you're talking to, the person that's done the upsetting, doesn't know, and they don't really have the skills to find out? Because I think it's quite an advanced skill to go to someone and go, can I just check in? Because I noticed that when I said this, you responded in a way that I was quite surprised at. Can I just check what was going on for you? And the story in my head is I might have done this, but can I, again, that takes quite a lot of courage and a bit of skill to do that.
And we are really rubbish at reading other people's facial expressions.
Totally.
So it becomes about curiosity, not trying to guess what the other person's feeling, asking them. We are so bad at it. And when we take judgment into it, when we decide that we know how somebody else is feeling, we're just wrong. lots and lots of the time.
So if someone needs the skills to find out what they've done, just literally going up to someone going, can you just fill me in? I think I may have upset you. I'm curious, did I? And what was the cause? And what's going on? And just being curious.
What did I do?
Yeah, what did I do?
Just asking, what did I do? And not having the conversation to prove that you didn't do it because they got upset. They own that emotion. It's a case of being curious to understand how they experienced it.
Do you need Sam's consent to go and have that conversation with the person that upset her?
Okay, so that's a really interesting question because a lot of the time once people have talked about it, they don't want once they talk, they kind of got it off their chest and they go, I don't want you to tell it to anyone. The way that we advise is that there is a commitment to having the conversation. As soon as we are having the first conversation, there is a commitment to tell the supposed perpetrator because otherwise, how can they know?
But how do you avoid getting into the rescuer victim role when you are doing this? I'll go and have that conversation on your, well, it's not really on your, I was about to say on your behalf, but you're not having it on their behalf, are you? You're having it on everybody's behalf, right?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I think it helps to step away from Cartman for understanding the relationships that are going on here. You're not a rescuer. You're not a victim. You're a messenger. You are giving somebody a piece of information that they have a professional right to know. And you're handing it to them because that knowledge could literally result in other people having their lives saved. Because if we go through life leaving trails of devastation behind us in the people that we work with, then the consequence is that our patients get worse care. And we're there to provide the best care that we can. So in my head, this is not about the drama triangle. This is a different relationship, and it's a more adult relationship. And it's not about rescuing. It's about informing in the most kind, compassionate way that we can, because it is not easy to hear this kind of stuff. None of us enjoys hearing that we left other people distressed. We don't like that. Very few of us enjoy that. But particularly if we know that means that our patients are getting less good care, that's even worse. So compassionate delivery of a package of information that people have a professional right to know about.
And I love that because you've reframed it from what you're not doing. You're not going and rescuing the victim who's been hurt. You've noticed the behaviour, and it's not really about anymore. It's not about the victim of the behaviour anymore. It's about the person that did that behaviour. It's about telling them, giving them feedback about the behaviour so that they can change for the future and keep everybody safe, right?
And it's also something else. It's that there may have been no intention, none whatsoever. In fact, sometimes the person didn't even do the behaviour that the other person's taken offence at. It didn't happen that way. But this is all about how we experience life as human beings. And we don't all experience it the same way. And we get stuff wrong, and we think that we have the full truth. But of course we don't. But it doesn't matter on one level. This is the level that it doesn't matter on. If we have an interaction, I am left feeling less at the end of that interaction. The consequence is that my performance is dropping off. We don't want that in our teams. And one of the things I learned coming to England is that there is language that I would use in Scotland amongst my mates that you guys are so soft. You're horrified by it.
Oh yeah, you must never say anything directly, Chris.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, there are words that you could. There's a word that I have learned is apparently a dreadful word that begins with C, and it's a very small word. And apparently, it's a really bad word in England. In the groups that I function with, or some of them in Scotland, it means person. Literally, that's what it means.
I mean, there's a few things that strike me as why this is so helpful. Firstly, is that when you're raising that, just to let you know, what happened because Sam was upset. I thought you'd like to know. I think a lot of the time we don't give the feedback. Well, A, because we don't want to upset the person, but B, because we don't know what we'll then say. What advice would we give? And this is how I think you should change, or this is what you should do instead. But if you don't have to do that, then great. All you're doing is saying, actually, that happened. Thought I'd flag that up for you.
One of the things that we know about this, and this is uncomfortable, is that As leaders, we generally are more accepting of criticism if we invite it. Uninvited criticism or uninvited challenge is difficult. Invited challenge, we feel like we have a degree of control over it. And that's back to that thing that Magnus taught me to say in trauma about, if you think I've missed something or you think I've got something wrong, please tell me. I was talking a few weeks ago to a surgeon who he admitted this in a group of folk, and you know what? It's uncomfortable what he admitted, and I would entirely resonate with it. And it's this. He said, I really like people to call me by my first name in theatre. And everyone calls each other by a first name, and I like it when my team call me by my first name. I really dislike it when somebody comes in who's not been part of that team and isn't part of that group, who comes in and uses my first name. And it's very clear that's not right, okay? And yet it is the human condition that we don't enjoy somebody assuming they can do that. I don't enjoy it if I'm running trauma and somebody comes in and assumes they can come in and criticize what I'm doing. It's like, who the hell are you? Because actually I find that destabilizing. And I suppose part of that is me trying to control my own environment so that I'm not overstimulated by it and that I'm able to perform at my best.
I think that is just a human condition, isn't it? Because nobody likes, criticism gets our backs up, whether it's well-intended, whether it's right or not, because again, it's just that threat thing, isn't it? So if it's uninvited, it just catches you unawares for a start.
Exactly that.
If it's invited, then you can brace yourself for it, and you know that it's got good intentions behind it as well. So it's a completely different kettle of fish. But what if you are that person? Because it's really hard. I'm sure everyone listening to this podcast is not only thinking about people that they need to go give feedback to about their behaviour, but thinking, oh my goodness. And then I know I am that person. And the problem is when we get that feedback, it can be really devastating. And then our amygdala does flare up. So how do we manage ourselves? How do we not be that person that responds really badly, but we are the person who is inviting criticism and dealing with it when it comes?
So we're going to have a response. We're humans. We're going to have a response. We're going to be disappointed in ourselves. The point is that us having our own reaction about ourselves, this is not somebody else telling us that we've been bad. The transaction is totally different. This is an internal monologue, an internal understanding. And I've had it done to me twice. Twice in the last 10 years, I've had feedback delivered to me in something resembling the way I've just described. And on both occasions, I had precisely zero knowledge that I had hurt somebody. And on both occasions, it gave me the opportunity to go and speak with that person and to resolve it. And on both occasions, I ended up having very good working relationships with those people. And one of the things we know about people who say sorry and the act of saying sorry is that lots of folk hate it. They just detest saying sorry. But the truth is that if we screw up with somebody, before we screw up with somebody, they see us at, say, a level 5 in terms of how much they like or respect us. We screw up with them. We go down to a 3. Somebody tells us that we've screwed it up. We go and say sorry. Now we're not a 5. Now we're a 7. We rise in people's estimation. The act of saying sorry is hugely powerful. It sees others, it recognises flaws in ourselves, and it says we can be better.
The other thing I have noticed is, and this happened to me recently, and I'm quite obsessed on this podcast about these stories of guilt and shame, and I ought to, and I'm such a bad person. I thought I'd upset someone recently, and I was really beating myself up about it, and I noticed that they reacted slightly offhand with me, and I was like, I thought I can't go and I can't speak to them. What if they tell me what if they really come back with criticism, etc. I did, and I went to speak to them, and I had upset them. I had, and they said, yes, you did, and they told me, and I apologized, and it was like a drain cleaner had gone down the drain, and just the relationship was much, much better. But the reason I'm telling this story is the story I was making up in my head about how awful it would be if I actually had done that thing I thought I had done was actually much worse than receiving the criticism that I actually had done it.
100% that.
We still fear it though. We do. It's hard. It's my quest to be able to do this without telling myself all those awful shame stories, because we all muck up, don't we? Particularly when you work in environments where literally people are dying and life turns on, split decisions and all that sort of stuff. So, Chris, With all of this, what if you had to sort of distill this advice into 3 top tips for people, what would they be?
I would say be kind to yourself. You're going to screw up. Everyone screws up. Own it when you do. Find the people who let you own it without weaponizing it. And when other people screw up, let them own it, but don't judge them on it. Support them through it, because nobody wants to screw up. And the final thing I would ask people to think about is just really quickly, what's your theme tune? What music do you want people to hear when you walk in the door? Choose your music. And then decide how you need to behave if you want people to hear that music when you walk through the door.
I love that. Do you mind me asking, what's your theme tune?
Mine's really embarrassing because the people who wrote it are a bit of a pair of plonkers. Right said Fred. Deeply dippy. I love it.
For a minute, I was thinking it's I'm too sexy for my shirt.
No, definitely not.
Are you sure?
Deeply dippy, yes. I'm very, 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 very sure.
We now know the next time you do like a TEDx talk, we now know what's going to be playing as you walk on. So helpful. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. If people want to find more about, the Civility Saves Lives or get in contact with you or anything, how can they do that?
CivilitySavesLives.com is the website. And if you write to us there, everybody gets answered. Usually reasonably quickly, but everybody gets answered. And then one of us has a chat with folk. It's usually me if people want to talk about this stuff. So you see us, get us there. And we're on Twitter at Civility Saves.